Dr. Dianne Grocott, who is a doctor and psychiatrist from Melbourne, Australia. So it's safe to say you're a brain expert, but you believe that the brain was designed, not evolved.
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Right. Well, I've been interested in the brain for probably about 40 years. I did medicine, then I did psychiatry, which is not psychology. We use medication and we look at the types of disorders which usually there's some biological connection where we can possibly make a difference, but we do lots of talk therapy as well, and we try and leverage the brain's own ability for neuroplasticity to rewire to work better.
Okay, so that's a pretty complex process.
It is a pretty complex process.
Dianne, why don't you think that the brain evolved?
Right, the brain is such an amazingly complex organ, and we can rave about that. 86 billion neurons, and each cell is full of DNA, and each DNA is like a supercomputer. And everybody knows that, but some people believe that the brain was designed, and some people believe that the brain evolved. So let's put it this way. If you believe the brain evolved, you're standing on about 5 different pillars.
5 pillars.
5 pillars. Okay. The first one is that everything came out of nothing. Like, in the beginning, there was nothing, then it exploded. Well, you actually needed a hand to light the match. Okay, that's the first pillar. Second one is easy. That's chemical evolution. That was non-life, became life. And it's pretty obvious that for life, you need design, you need order, you need information. And that has to come from somewhere. It's like if you drop your marbles, they don't all line up, do they? And I was talking to my taxi driver this morning about that, practicing my talk, and he said, no, you need a hand to put them together. I'm going, yeah, exactly. Okay. And then the third thing is the business of biological evolution, microbes to monkeys and then monkeys to men. And again, DNA is so complex. It's so difficult to put a new piece of anything into DNA. The DNA, only 2% of it actually codes for proteins, and the rest of it, that we used to call junk DNA, is not junk at all. It's actually a supercomputer. It's the operating system to decide what to do with all of those bits that do the proteins, because they're moved around and choreographed, and there's a 3D structure and then time, which makes it 4D structure. So the DNA is incredibly complex. And then, so you probably can't get from a microbe to a monkey. And then they've even looked at how can you get from a monkey to a man, and the genetics is just so far has said, well, if you wanted to put in even one extra gene, it would take you probably longer by chance than is the time of, we think is the age of the universe.
Longer than the age of the universe.
Yep. So the geneticists did this amazing model, and they said if you wanted just to put in one letter into the DNA, and by chance put it in and it's got a stick, and then you've got to change it so that it's called fixation. So the whole population ends up to having that one. In other words, things without it drop off, and those that have it continue. To fix a new gene in a population takes something like several million years.
Wow.
And then if you want to put another one in, it goes up to the billions, and it is just it's not possible. Monkeys did not turn into humans. The next pillar, the fourth pillar, is a misunderstanding about what natural selection is. Like everybody, the creationists, the evolutionists, everybody can see that if you've got a whole lot of wild dogs and you select some genes, you can get yourself a Pekingese or a different other sort of dog. And you've actually lost information there. So when people look at natural selection, they see change and they think that's good change, but that's actually limiting the amount of genetic material you've got for good reasons. Like, we've been breeding dogs for many years and cows and things like that, but they didn't turn into anything else. So that's the fourth pillar. So if you haven't got an explanation for how nothing came to something, and then something came to life, and then life came to the complexity of human existence, and you can't assume natural selection did it for you, and you still believe that the brain evolved, then you're on the fifth pillar, and that is free will, which is that we can choose the glasses that we look at the data through, because everybody's looking at the same data, and people see because they choose. And that's actually, I think, evidence for design.